Kenneth Olisa. Thank you for joining me.
Good morning, good morning.
Been looking forward to this.
Great. Well, let's hope I don't let you down.
No, I know you won't. Tell me, who is Sir Kenneth Olisa?
Well, clearly it's the chap sitting opposite you, in case you thought that it went wrong at reception.
I got that right.
Phew. Well, it's a very long story, really. I am an IT entrepreneur. It's probably the best way to describe it, having spent the first half of my working life in real companies and then the rest abandoning working for real companies and helping other people survive in making money out of their dreams, really, but adding to the world. I have to say the people I work with are generally people who want to make the world a better place, and whatever it is they've invented, discovered, intended to do is driving in that direction. And it's what I do as well. So I'm very lucky, I'm very privileged. I spend my time essentially making people happy. This morning may be an exception, but in general cases, that's what I do.
You've got a great sense of humour. Take back to a younger version of Ken, the early influences of who and what that's kind of inspired you to be able to now help people and do the things you're doing.
Well, obviously the earliest influence was my mother. My father had abandoned us soon after I was born, so I never knew him. So my mother was my sole parent. My mother had a very strong view of life, which I think simply put now, when I look back on it, was you should try everything, but only carry on with the things you're good at. So music, for example, she thought I'd be a brilliant musician, so she managed to scratch the money together to buy a piano. I went to piano lessons. I was useless at it. We agreed that actually I could stop doing that, but I had to try. Sport was the same, etc., etc. So I think that deep down inside of me is this realization that one should have a go at things as opposed to working out why one shouldn't have a go at things.
Which actually breeds the entrepreneurial spirit, doesn't it? A lot of people are afraid of failing or judgment, so they won't try.
Yeah, with my experience, I have no fear of failure. I've failed so many times; it's just become a habit. But I think that idea that you should have a go at things that, well, actually everything, because you don't know until you've tried whether A, you're going to enjoy it, B, whether you're going to be any good at it. And I think one of the big disappointments in my life is meeting people who refuse to try something. And one of the biggest killers is, oh no, that's not for people like you, which is other people telling you shouldn't try something. My mother was the antidote to all of that. So I think the platform on which I'm proud to stand is definitely my mum and all that she did for me. One of the other things I've been really lucky. So many people have gone out of their way to help me. I look back on my childhood. We were very poor, I didn't know what not being poor was like. So we were very poor. It was life. But people nevertheless went out of their way to help me. Not my mum either, particularly me. There was something about me that people wanted to help, and I can point back to a small boy all the way to yesterday. People were saying, actually, Ken, if I could help you do this, would you enjoy it? And I think one of the big lessons I've learned in life is there is a lot of luck about, and so many people diss the luck as opposed to welcoming it. And the second thing I would say, and probably the only other thing I can honestly say about my skill, is not screwing up the luck when it comes.
Embrace it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you believe you make your own luck? Because there's a mindset there, and you're clearly giving something off that people want to help you. And I guess that's, something that people are not necessarily embracing and shut off to. So do you believe that you make your own luck?
No, I don't actually. I think luck is, by definition, something that happens to you. You can't create it, but you can screw up your luck. You can say, actually, I'm not going to try that. I'm not going to do that. Back to my mum, actually, no, what you should do is you try these things. And if they work, whoopee. And if they don't work, that's okay. You tried. So luck turns up and you go, oh, I'm not really sure about that. He was slightly dodgy. But I met a bloke this morning who claimed to be a property developer. Oh, I really want to. The answer is, I don't know. Go meet people, find out, make judgments. Make judgments after you've got the evidence. Don't do it too soon. But so many people will say, no, not for me. And the worst things I've just said is other people saying it's not for you. This world is not for people like you. And that's such a killer.
Yeah. And you've proven that. I think we were talking off camera about who's the audience that listens to this. Is it a young person as aspirational, inspiration, learning from someone like yourself? But of course, there was people like myself that have pivoted and actually had to start again or chosen to start again, embracing a challenge. And I think this brings it to growth. You sitting here now, are fully engaged and present, talking to people all the time and learning. It doesn't feel like you'll ever stop.
Mm.
Is that how you've always lived? And is that how you see yourself kind of almost ending, if you like, still working on the next opportunity, the next deal? Because you're very relevant right now.
Well, thank you. I'm very glad I came to see you this morning. This is going rather well. I'm so old, I can't remember what I used to be like. What was I like at school? I don't really know what I was like at school. School was a bit of a mystery to me, as I think it should be. You know, every day was a new lesson, something learned, etc. But I do remember teachers going out of their way to help me, to push me, to persuade me to do something. I went to great university, and again, people there went friends, both in the next room, would spend time helping me do something else. So it's my point about luck, really, isn't it? There's some magnetic thing that
I
means people
think
want to help me.
I think it's purpose. I'm living in real time with you now, meeting you, right? There's a genuine interest. You asked me lots of questions before we started filming. You've got questions all the time in your mind about me and why am I
Well, I've got
asking
more
this?
questions about you now than I
I
had when we
bet,
started.
and I bet there'll be a whole separate interview afterwards. But what I'm picking up on is that you show an interest as a conversation develops or as something you're looking into, and I want to bring that whole purpose side of things up. What's your purpose now, and how has that changed? Because when you introduced yourself, it was about helping people. That passion's there. Dare I say, an element of mentorship that you may well not have had from not having a father figure when you were younger. Your mother made up for it in spades, clearly, but that element of them being able to give back feels hugely present about you.
Yeah, well, it certainly is. Well, we have a family motto. My wife and I conjured up a family motto in the place where you do family mottos and coats of arms and so on, which is another amazing thing that would have been unimaginable when I was a small boy or even at school or university. But our motto is do well, do good. Do well is what my mum said, get on with it, do your best, etc. But do good is the other side of that coin. And I mean, we get a thrill out of helping other people. There are people I know who get a thrill out of harming other people, so it's not universal, but I'm pleased to say I'm on the good end of that particular spectrum. So I get a thrill out of helping people, and you know what? Then they get a thrill out of being helped, and it's a win-win. So would I call that purpose? I suppose I would if under pressure, but up until now, it's my motto.
You've not labelled it. I didn't mean to label it, but I think you've also been recognised for that. OBE,
Mhm.
Knight of the Realm. You know, that's something that, going back to, I can tell there's a very humble young boy in Ken, you know, who clearly had ambition but didn't know how well you were going to do. Do you recognise, sitting here now, those achievements, and are you kind of proud of them, or they just sort of almost happened along the way?
So I think no, I should be proud of what's happened, uh, but the way I express that is probably better put by saying I frequently find myself in situations where I have to pinch myself. How on earth did this boy who started out in the back streets of Nottingham end up in, I don't know, sitting by the altar in Westminster Abbey at the coronation? How on earth does that happen? I have to pinch myself. So I don't take my luck for granted. It's very precious, and it's quite an important point. Digging deep into me here. So, but it is a very important point, which is so many people feel that they are entitled, and entitled people are, I think, the kiss of death for society and for community and so on. I know one of the great things I get to do in my capacity as Lord Lieutenant of Greater London, the King's representative in the capital city, is I get to present honours to people who've been recommended by other people for what they've done. British Empire Medal is the first level of the Order of the British Empire, and I present perhaps 60 or 70 British Empire medals at 2 investitures a year in the Tower of London in a very formal, very important. It's a mini version of what would happen if you went to the palace. Really, so it's terrifying for everybody who arrives until they've got their medal and they've seen all the other people and heard the other things, the things that other people have done, and then they skip out off to lunch with their loved ones who they no longer want to murder, or whatever, divorce, etc. Because the day has now gone really rather well. Whereas at the beginning of the day, it starts under pressure because you're late, your clothes don't fit. It's really quite scary. But that change from terror to joy is a really important thing. And I get to present these medals to people and to watch them be transformed from anger because the train was late, panic because their shoes don't fit, to skipping out with their loved ones to go and have lunch. And every one of them has done something worthy of the monarch's recognition, and it will have been 50 years running a swimming club for disabled people, or some, I mean, just wonderful, wonderful things. And I look at that and I see that's the essence of society and community and humanity and so on. And those aren't people who are even privileged, really. They just got on with it. And then I meet people who consider themselves to be entitled. And I detest them, I have to say, to summarize a longer point. And I'm happy not to be there. And I'm very happy to be privileged enough to be able to make other people feel happy.
I really want to come back to, I can only imagine how lovely that experience must be for people that have done so much good, and then to be awarded and honoured by you as an individual, let alone the principle of what's happening, because you've got so much empathy, you've got so much charisma and understanding. So that must be fun. But I want to touch on ego, because you sit with huge credentials as an IT entrepreneur, and you are mentoring and helping people in the space of entrepreneurship as well. Ego is something that really needs to be managed, doesn't it? Because if that person feels entitled, or thinks they've got a magic gift to build a unicorn business and so on, I guess that takes some managing, and you've got to work out how to, I guess, to advise and mentor that. What advice would you give to someone that's ambitious, driven, I dare I say, wants to make money, but also needs to have that side of things managed with compassion?
The smart answer to that question is all of the answers to that question lie in my as yet unpublished book on how to be a successful mission-addicted disruptor entrepreneur. My clientele are people who are obsessed with doing something that they think will make the world a better place. They're not obsessed by making money. I can say with all of my clients, for all of my clients, making money is a consequence of this thing they're trying to make happen, and it doesn't drive them. I've got one particular company I'm chairman. We raised $100 million in the last 3 years. The chief executive keeps saying, I don't really think that my pay is right, my remuneration is right, but we'll have to sort it out next year, because at the moment so his focus is on the mission of this business, this dream he's got, this holy grail, this focus. All of my clients, it's not a huge number, but my clients are all people who've got a holy grail vision, and that holy grail will make the world a better place, whatever it is that they've invented. So I find that very fulfilling. I've worked in the past. I've worked for big companies. I worked for IBM, my formative time. Okay, and maybe the people at the top were trying to make the world a better place. I obviously didn't meet them. I was a junior at the time, but it was a company, and it had all the things that companies have, with people who don't really understand why they're working there. They're not doing it for the purpose. They're not trying to change something. It's a job. They get them at 5 or 4:59 or something. Really, really frustrating. I'm happy to say I don't have to deal with anybody like that now. I deal with people that will do 24/7, 5 days a week, until they've got the effing thing to work, or the thing to be bought, or whatever it happens to be. And that's, again, very, very uplifting, because that's how mankind progresses. It's people that say, I'm obsessed with making some fundamental difference. And I get the privilege of saying, well, I tried that 20 years ago, and here's how I screwed up. Here's perhaps a better way of tackling it.
Perfect mentor again. And I think you'll agree with this, and I've got my own personal experiences as well, is actually that fulfillment and, again, purpose and passion for what you're pursuing. The money will come.
Yeah, I remember when I worked, I was responsible for running marketing in a big IT company in America. So it was the best possible job. If you had a job in IT and marketing, you know that everything comes from America. So basically, if you're not in America, you're at the wrong end of the fire hose. And one day, it was my fire hose. So I was in seventh heaven, and I discovered how to get advertising campaigns on TV in America to work. It was all wonderful. And one day, my stockbroker, I had a stockbroker those days, called me up to say, great news, we've just sold XYZ shares and you made a decent profit. And I said, well, that's brilliant. And he said, you're not interested in money, are you? So that's an insult, right? That's a little bit like saying you have a small personal part. No, not a good idea. So I said, of course I am. Why do you say that? He said, well, you never ring me. I said, well, I don't need to ring you. You ring me when there's something to tell me. What would I ring you about? He said, well, you could ring me about things we might do to make you more money. So I said, well, but I'm quite happy for you to work those out without, I don't think I've got anything to add. If I knew how to do it, I said, I wouldn't need you. So I'm very happy for you to go. I trust you. Yope was his name. I trust you. You deal with that. He said, no, you're not interested in money. So I'm now insulted. And I said, well, hang on. We bought those shares. I agreed with the purchase. We've just sold them. I've made some money. Because I'm delighted. And he said famously, even blind squirrels find nuts occasionally. Put the phone down. And I remember thinking, I didn't really win that argument. I have to say, none of my clients cares about how much money they make. They know they will. It's a consequence of something. But they're trying to, I've got an AI client, change the world. The $100 million one is to change the way that we connect big public companies with the economic beneficiary, despite all the fund managers and people in between them. And this chap wants to democratize share ownership. And when he's done that, he doesn't know what he'll do next. He has a plan. He'll do something else. But when he hasn't done that yet. So these people they're really exhilarating, really, because we spend our time talking about how we can make the world better. It's beginning to sound a bit hokey, this, but it's true. All these people, and I've been doing it for 20-something years, all of these people are trying to make sure that their legacy will be, this place was better than when I started.
What a great legacy as well. That's fascinating. And actually, you manage something that these guys have got to go through, which is that exiting as an entrepreneur, and having a purpose that you move into. And I think you're the perfect person to have that as a mentor, because there are people that sell a business for 100 million and then get depressed. It was all about the money. It was all about a vision, an image that actually, money doesn't make you happy. And I think you're probably an amazing mentor and partner to have for these people when they go through that journey.
It is worth saying that money does make some people happy. So some people, money is their objective. They're just not my clientele. It's just not my world.
Well, we both use the word fulfillment.
Mm.
I know that's what I was lacking, and it's clear you got that from conversations this morning. You've got that from whatever you'll end up doing this afternoon, and that's the same for me. Right, I want to get the terminology right. Lord Lieutenant
Well done.
of Greater London.
Yep, 10 out of 10. Well done.
Thank you. Which means that you are ultimately incredibly close to the King. And I want to know the journey. I want to know how that came about. How did you become Lord Lieutenant of Greater London, and what almost is the sort of the job role?
So you put that far better than most people do. So many people say to me, "How on earth did you become Lord Lieutenant?" So thank you. I take that as a compliment. Well,
You absolutely should.
Thank you. I mean, first of all, what is a Lord Lieutenant? It's a very ancient, it's a very old position. King Henry VIII introduced the concept of Lord Lieutenants, and essentially, that back then they were the military governor in a county. So the Lord Lieutenant of, say, Lincolnshire would have raised the army and quelled riots in Lincolnshire. In fact, the Lord Lieutenant of Lincolnshire would have raised the army for the militia for Lincolnshire right up to the early 20th century. So it's got that long military connection. If you were to come to my office, you see the photographs of all my predecessors for Greater London. It's basically Field Marshal, Field Marshal, Field Marshal, Field Marshal, Field Marshal, Field Marshal, Field Marshal. You get the general idea? Field Marshal, Field Marshal. And my predecessor was the Lord Mayor of London, and his predecessor was the head of the police, and all the rest were essentially, with one exception, Field Marshals. So you get the historic piece there, that once upon a time it was about upholding the dignity of the crown by quelling the riot and raising the militia. In the 21st century, upholding the dignity of the crown means something quite different. Obviously, we have the Metropolitan Police for the riot quelling, and we've outsourced recruiting the militia to various agencies. So that's a subject for another time, perhaps. But upholding the dignity of the crown remains fundamentally important. Sadly, in our country, people just take the crown of the monarch for granted. And to my depression, there's a lot of misunderstanding about how our system, our social system works. For example, the Constitution. People say, well, we haven't really got one, we've got an unwritten Constitution. Well, we have obviously got a Constitution. America's got a written Constitution, and they're fighting it all the time. So the writing, not writing, isn't the important bit. The important bit is that people behave because it's the way, they are the rules of the game, as it were. And at the top of that pyramid of what we have to do in the country is the monarch. Now the king, before that, his mother, the queen. And part of what they do, the monarch, is be the repository of our national values. So things that go well, for example, we were just talking about handing out honours, presenting honours. Somebody says, this person spent 75, I gave a British Empire medal to a man who spent 70 years volunteering for the Scouts. Some people get together and say, you know what, this is a symbol of what's great about our country, our values, and this person should be recognised. They fill out a form. The form goes into a system. If it's in London, get to look at it as well and see whether you can find any more out about the person. It goes into a committee. The committee then makes a recommendation, and eventually the monarch signs off the fact that that person now becomes a member of the Order of British Empire. That process is part of binding our society, because the chap I just mentioned actually was a Greek Cypriot who moved here 60 years ago, having spent 10 years in Cyprus helping the Scouts, and then devoted his private time to helping the Scouts in this country. It's another great story, just another quick story, but there's a Nepalese man who came over here, Gurkha family, etc., and started a restaurant, an Indian restaurant, and then COVID hit. When COVID hit, suddenly he didn't have a restaurant. It's a great story because I gave him an award for what he had done, but he called his mother back in Nepal and said, "Mum, it's all can't have any customers. COVID's blown it up. We're closing the business." And she said, "We don't exist to close businesses. We exist to build them." So that was the end of that. He then had to work out what to do where there were no customers, and he turned his restaurant into a dark kitchen and made 100,000 meals, which were then given free to NHS workers in COVID. So somebody who didn't grow up here but got our values did something, and he then this last weekend got an MBE. So the king, the monarch, has said that person, on advice, that person deserves to be recognised. It's a wonderful system,
Brilliant.
and I get to be privileged enough to pin these medals on the chests of people.
Very
to
humbling.
say, thank you. Oh, it is amazing. I remember the first Holocaust survivor I presented a medal to, and the story hiding in a hole in a forest somewhere in it doesn't matter where, but in Eastern Europe, while the Nazis are looking for. I mean, and these people, what did this lady do? She turned her life into going to schools to tell children about evil and good and what they should do. So the king is at the top of that pyramid, and the queen before that, the top of that pyramid. And I'm lucky enough in London to be his representative, to try to find ways to amplify that. And I do it through faith groups, helping faith groups. I do it through other community things, the military, the cadets, and. And I spend a good third of my time basically thanking people and making them happy.
Brilliant. Again, coming back to fulfillment.
It's wonderful.
And how much actual interaction do you have with the king himself?
Well, every time he comes to London on a formal visit, I'm there to receive him, make sure that, I'm there before he gets there, obviously, to make sure that everything's set up properly. I'm there to receive him, to make sure all goes okay, and I then get to say goodbye to him when he goes. So I see him 2 or 3 times a month, I suppose. And then there are lots of events at which I see him as well.
And because of who you are as a personality, you aren't someone that just chaperones. You have such incredible relationship skills. Have you got to know the king well? Because I can imagine, without, can I call it a friendship? I can imagine that's what it must be.
No, I'm sure not. I mean, you think about how many people he has to see every day. But do I feel he trusts me? Yeah, I mean, I can tell a story. I don't think this is spoiling anything. The Met Police Commissioner told me that just after all the riots happened a couple of years ago in the UK, he would like the king to say something about multi-faith relationships. And did I think it was a good idea? And I said, well, it is a good idea. And if I get a chance to mention it in the next week or so, I will. And I did. And the king said, that's a really good idea. And he called a meeting of 45 people from all different faiths in Buckingham Palace. And we sat at 3 different tables, one focusing on women, one focusing on young people, and one focusing on communities generally. And we debated amongst ourselves what the messages ought to be, what were the real pinch points. And then the king came in, he spent 10 minutes or so at each table listening to us. And his Christmas speech that year was all about interfaith relationships. Really important. Now, I claim no credit. It was the commissioner's idea. I just happened to be the messenger in the whole process. But my point of that story isn't about me. It's about how the system works. It's about the fact that we've got somebody in the country who's not political, is not a celebrity, is a repository of values, and helps us all look at something. And we see that. We see the way the royal family, particularly the late Queen and the King, are celebrated by the people. It's so uplifting, and in one sense it's ridiculous. I mean, trying to explain logically why having a monarch makes sense. Actually, trying to explain logically why having politicians make. Actually, nothing we do is really logical, but somehow it's visceral. It's anthropological, and seeing that whole system work, and the king and the queen, the current queen, they're doing this all day, every day, all over the country. He did a day trip to Canada to give that speech on the opening of Parliament in Canada. I mean, this is real service. And I'll finish all that by saying, because it is a wonderful circle to the point you've been making. You may remember at the coronation, you may not have noticed, but at the coronation, the very first thing, the king came in. I mean, obviously a lot of people came in, things happened, but then the king came in and it basically started. And he sat in a small throne before he got into the big throne up near the altar. And a small boy welcomed him to the abbey. And the king said, I come to serve, not to be served. And I think that's I'm going to cry saying it, it's such a powerful line, because it draws a distinction between people who are entitled and people who are merely privileged and are using that privilege for the right reasons.
You've articulated that beautifully. Thank you for sharing all of that. But the role that you've got, tell me, and forgive me if you did mention it, but I don't think you did, how you got it, and also the tenure and how you go about replacing. Are you part of that? Do you choose the replacement? Do you have influence of that? Or is there like a committee that chooses the role?
Right. So the answer is, I got a letter from the clerk to the Privy Council explaining that he was charged with the job of finding the replacement for the retiring Lord Lieutenant, so that's how it happens, and would make recommendations to the King, and that my name had been put forward, having taken soundings. I thought it was a spoof. I thought that a chap I was at university with, on whom I played the most monumentally successful trick in 1973, had finally found a way of getting his own back. So actually, I nearly didn't respond because it couldn't possibly be true. I wisely, though, took the letter to somebody who used to be the clerk to the Privy Council, who I happened to know, and asked him to give me his view on it. And I sat while he read it 3 times. And I thought, he's going to say, Ken, this doesn't look right. I'm really sorry, old chap, but, And when he finished it, he put it neatly back together again and famously said, well, it's not the way I would have written it. And I thought, it's real. So actually, I am being considered for this role. I then had an interview with the clerk to the Privy Council, and I thought actually he was asking me if I wanted to do it, and it was mine. Halfway through the interview, I realized it was an interview and it was competitive. So I'm an aging salesman. I switched gears from just chattering about things and began to focus on the objective. And what happens is he then sends 3 names to the then Prime Minister, it's David Cameron. David Cameron chooses one, sent it to the Queen. The Queen pricked it and it came back again. So the most astonishing, bolt out of the blue opportunity. And back to your earlier question about luck. No, I don't think I can claim to have done anything in particular that made all that happen. It was pure luck, but I didn't screw it up.
No, I was just going to say, you take your opportunities. And I love that when you talked earlier about the fact that you failed multiple times. There's so many things you've been successful with because you've kept trying, you keep going. Sitting here now with all this maturity and perspective that you've got, all the things you've achieved, we could name so many things. And I also know that without making you feel uncomfortable, that's not actually what you want to be doing. But what I want to ask you is, how do you define success?
I suppose I can look to sport. Well, I'm not a sports person, but I look to sport for the answer. You're playing a game. Do you score more goals than the other side? It's kind of obvious, but it's in the transaction. The next game you play, do you score more goals than the other side? And then the next one. So it's not a continuum. And even if you get to be the champion at something, it goes back to 0 and it starts all over again. So I think I would answer that question by saying probably the most formative job I've had in my life, in the sense where everything was learning, was as a salesman. So I worked for IBM after university. Well, actually, I had a scholarship from IBM at university, another luck thing, having started computer programming when I was at school. And whilst I'm just doing my luck, and I'll come back and answer your question, at school in the 6th form, we had a choice on a Friday afternoon, either to go cross-country running or to go to the local university to learn computer programming. I had no idea what computer programming was, but I did know it was indoors. I did know I'd be fully clothed. I did know there were going to be no communal showers, and there would be no rain. It seemed a no-brainer to me, so I went off to Nottingham University to discover what computer programming was, and my career in IT was born. But zero strategy, 0 knowledge, the rest of it, luck. Well, I suppose I did make a decision, so perhaps slightly less luck, but at least I had a choice. Imagine being at a school where you could only go cross-country running. So I had a scholarship from IBM then, after I worked for them for my gap year, and then, and then I went to work for IBM as a systems engineer. So I was the person who helped the salesman put the proposal together, design the system, then I would write the system, test the system, install the system, and then go on to the next one. So I was a real engineer as opposed to not. And one day I'd been up all night sorting out something that needed to be delivered to a customer the next day. Finished it, came home, had a shower, some breakfast, and the salesman that I was working with picked me up, take me back up to London for the next what presentation we're doing. So as we drove up, I remember, I'll never forget this, drove through the Hammersmith towards London in his super white E-Type Jaguar. A little voice inside me said, he wasn't up all night. He wasn't doing these other things, and he's got an E-Type Jaguar, and you've got some Renault 16 or something. And he probably earns more than you can. There's a lesson here. So I became a salesman, and I was a successful computer salesman for IBM before moving into marketing, and the rest is my career. But that sales time, I still get the buzz when somebody signs the piece of paper. So that was a long answer to a question. But if you've got somebody to a position where they trust you enough to sign that piece of paper, that gives me a thrill.
The E-Type conversation and the kind of inspiration that can also become a role model. That could be someone in the limelight, if you like, a celebrity, but also people you spend time around. Do you recognise that you are a role model. And I think also making the bigger point that you were the first director, black director of a FTSE 100 company. There are a number of firsts that you've led in context of being a role model to the black community. Is that something you embrace and are aware of?
Yes, the short answer to that question is yes. You don't get short answers from me, so that's just the lead in. So I used to be on the board of Reuters, which is the one you were just talking about, and we had a driver called Kwame. Kwame was Ghanaian, and he's one of the many drivers. But Kwame and I struck quite a good relationship. He's a lovely bloke. And one day he picked me up to take me from my office in the West End to Reuters in Canary Wharf, where we were having a Black History Month event, the topic of which was a debate, actually. The topic of which was role models are important for black boys or something. I forget what something along those lines.
Sure.
Anyway, I have no interest in that. Black boys, white boys, yellow boys, green boys, they're boys, girls, etc., etc. I want people to find their potential and fulfill it, and I don't recognize all these adjectives. I was once given an honorary degree by university, and they said just before we were about to go in with our fancy clothes on and so on, the chap who's going to do the valedictory said, "And how should I describe the fact you're black?" And I was thinking, I'm getting an honorary degree. This is the most wonderful what? And I said, it's my 40th adjective. So when he presented me, he said, and Mr. Olisa would just like to want to know that being black is his 40th adjective. My point is, it's so unimportant to my life, my story, etc., etc. Anyway, Kwame is driving me to Canary Wharf. I've got my phone out. I've got my laptop on my desk, on my lap, and I'm tapping away at something. And I said to Kwame, because I'm being slightly arrogant, I said, Kwame, I'm just going to chair a debate on whether role models are important for black families. What do you think? And Kwame, who was always super polite, looked into the rearview mirror and said to me, "Yes, sir." And the temperature dropped. So I put my machine down, I put my phone down. I said, "Whoa, Kwame, that was a little bit forceful. What's behind that?" And Kwame said, "So I live in Peckham. I have 2 children who see nobody else around them working. And it's been a real problem for me. And I've had to work really hard to get them to do well. And now they're both at college." So I opened my laptop. I said, "Well, good. That's well done, Kwame. That's well done, well done." And how did you do that? I opened my phone, and Kwame said, "I downloaded your biography from the Reuters website and shared it with them." I felt so small. I have to say, I was humiliated. Put everything away again. We discussed all the way to Canary Wharf the challenges he had persuading his children that this is a great country and the opportunities are there for them, rather than the anti-arguments, the negative ones that say, "Oh no, because you're black and live in Peckham, you've got no chance, it's not for you," and. So we arrived at this debate, a lot of people there, and I said, we've got a choice. I told that story, and I said, we've got a choice. We can either now spend our time having some kind of school debate about the obvious, or we can spend the hour we've got together talking about how we can improve role models for children generally in the country. And we went, yes, and we did. So I don't see gender, I don't see skin color, I don't see heritage, ethnicity. In this country, they don't have to be barriers to anything. But people will tell you that's not the case. People get in the way and say, "Oh, it's not for you, you shouldn't make it happen." White working class boys are the worst treated children in the country. This thing we're just having now about grooming gangs. There's a lot going wrong in the country, and we can fix it. But we mustn't let people divide us. It's all about community and bringing us together.
It's powerful what you just said. It's so incredibly relevant. I've spent a lot of time with the Centre for Social Justice, learning about the Lost Boys report that they put together, which is frightening, actually, in terms of the young lads that just quite simply don't seem to know who they are, lost their identity. And so that role model element, and I think you, again, describing how people get so muddled in their own minds and put their own barriers, their own train tracks in place. And then, it's conversations like this that allow people to know, actually, that's all in your head. Don't look at it like that.
Can I just tell you something that really annoys me and will help your listeners, help other people, which is there's a concept called, which is, I'm trying to be polite with all this stuff, but this idea of being an imposter. So the imposter syndrome is a thing I hear a lot. And I say to people, the concept of imposter syndrome is a control mechanism. I say, well, you sure you should really be here? And now I can control you. So the idea of being an imposter And I've been to some amazing things. Well, I just mentioned the Queen's funeral, the King's coronation. I've been amazing. I never feel an imposter. I'm astonished that I'm there. I pinch myself. I count my luck. But the idea I'm an imposter, and I remember another man put this better than I've just done. He said, "Do you know there are no doors in this country I can't go through?" It's so important that now there are countries where you can't go through the doors. This is it's a unique British thing, and we should celebrate it. We shouldn't let anybody put these false barriers in the way.
I've got a final question for you, which is actually really, from the flow of the way we've gone about this conversation, I'm actually really interested to see what you'll say. And it goes back to who you are, what you've done, the experiences you've had. If you could give one piece of advice to a younger version of yourself, when we were talking out there earlier, you said you spend a lot of time working with the kind of 18, 19-year-old entrepreneurs, which is clearly your passion. It's how you introduce yourself. What is the one piece of advice you would give?
It's really easy. When faced with a difficult choice, follow your heart and not your head.
I love that. I could keep talking to you for so much longer, but Ken, thank you for making time to talk with me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed it.
I have indeed. Thank you much. And is there a fee?
I love it. Thank you, Ken.
Take care.